The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee, but he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, "The Son of Man is to be handed over to men, and they will kill him, and 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about along the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing amongst themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
You might not know that in college, I was a speech communications major. I went from the Marine Corps to Modesto Junior College, and I transferred and didn't know what major I was going to choose. And then I found out they give degrees for speaking. I just couldn't even believe it. Just for talking, they give you a degree. I thought, I've been getting in trouble all my life because I wouldn't shut up. And they give degrees for this. I think Portuguese people should just get the degree right when they're born. Give it to them. They're gonna earn it. One of my classes was in adolescent communication. We observed young children and how they communicate, and sometimes by voice, sometimes by action. But in order to pass the class, we had to spend a certain number of hours watching young children play, 3 years old and 4 years old. And I thought it was going to be a total waste of time, but they had a place called a child laboratory. It sounds weird, I know, but anybody who had kids who was attending college, they would put their children in this child laboratory. And it was basically daycare for college students, but it also provided a chance for people to observe, people like me getting a degree. And so I thought it was going to be a waste of time, but it turned out to be an amazing blessing that I have never forgotten, and that I refer to often in conversations about this incredible experience of just being a fly on the wall and watching children play. It's magical. If you haven't done it, you should. There must have been 100 3 or 4-year-olds coming and going. They were like ants all over the play structures, walking along these little boards, climbing over here, climbing over there. There's 20 kids on one little structure, and they're making their way around and going down the slide. Nothing but joy and smiles and fun and laughter. They didn't have a care in the world. They were just living their best life, playing with their friends, having fun. And I sat there super stressed out about all the classes I was taking and the job, working part-time and involved in so many things. And I just looked at them playing and thought, my God, I want what they have. I felt like there was something really wrong about my life because it wasn't the life that I was living. I was stressed out about going to school, going 100 miles an hour, drinking too much, spending too much, working too much. And I had made the whole world, everybody that I encountered all throughout my day, all about me. all about me and my needs and my achievement and my growth and my greatness. And we, you should know, live in a world that is quite contrary to Christian values. I call it me-ism. Me-ism is a disorder, it's a sickness where every single thing is about me, where the whole world revolves around me, my likes, my wants, my needs, me, me, me. And parents who are involved with their children's lives, who see this habit begin in their children, should be quick to point out that, I'm sorry, young lady or young man, it doesn't always revolve around you. And you do that, right? You're always telling your children, listen, it's not about you. You live in a family and we need to share. And this is the work of parents, is to help their children see that it's not about them alone. But it's also about parents remembering that it's not about them alone. This is what frustrated Jesus in the gospel today. He's making his way to the cross. He, with his inner circle, his 12 disciples, he wanted to talk to just them. So he gets away from everybody else and he walks with them and he pours out his heart. He says, the Son of Man is going to suffer and die and then rise again. And what are they doing? Are they thinking, oh my gosh, let me help. What can I do? They don't even get it. They don't even ask about it. The only thing they can do is argue about which one of them is the greatest. What? They're with their Lord and he's pouring out his heart. And they don't even see it. They don't hear it because they're totally in a cocoon, all wrapped up in themselves. This is the sickness that I'm talking about. Can you imagine standing in the presence of God and arguing about who's great instead of pointing to who's great? How does this happen? How does it happen that we get so involved in ourselves? And St. James in the second reading gives us some amazing advice. He helps us to get a glimpse of how this occurs and really the antidote as well. He says, where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, jealousy and selfish ambition, where that exists, is also where exists every foul practice. You want disorder, you want ugliness, you want sickness and decay and disease. Look for the area with the most selfish ambition and jealousy. Jealousy is envious of what others have. It wants what others have, and it can't stand them because they have it. Selfish ambition is that desire to achieve for one's own sake. Selfish ambition means I want to climb the ladder for me, for my wealth, for my power, for me. The reverse of that would be, and I used to always tell my students, I want you to be a millionaire and the most powerful person in your community. Not for your sake, but because you can help more people. Because we can be a powerful person, has more influence to help others, to come to the aid of others. Those with greater wealth have more to give away. St. Paul says that. He says he works with his hands. He wants us to work so that we can be more generous. If we don't work and we don't have wealth, then we don't have anyone that we can help. And so be wealthy for others. Get power for others. That's what Jesus calls us to. Power for my sake, wealth for my sake is meism. It's thinking only about your need, yourself, your wants, your time, your treasure. There was a great book that I read when I was going through college. It was called Father Joe. I encourage you to read it. Father Joe would do confessions all day long, and he said, overwhelmingly, there was one sin that undergirded or rooted all other sins. He said, selfishness. Selfishness, thinking about me, doing what I want without regard for its impact on others. That was the root of sin. We as Christians are called to be selfless, not selfish. They're polar opposites. St. James says, you want to know where wars come from? You want to know where conflict comes from? He says it's why we are divided inside of ourselves. And it's why we cause violence toward others. We covet and we kill and we are envious and we fight. But he says we will not possess because we don't ask. And we will not receive because even when we do ask, we ask for the wrong things, for all the wrong reasons. We are asking for our sake as opposed to asking for others' sake. If your prayer is, God, make me wealthy so that I can bless so many people, you don't think that God wants that? But making me wealthy for my sake because I want a new Lambo, a little bit different, right? We need to be thoughtful about others. We ask wrongly, and in our selfishness, in our self-centeredness, we ask for ourselves, and we forget what small children have figured out so well. That life is way more fun when you take turns, when you laugh, when you play, and when you share what you have with others. That's God's way. That's what we teach our children, and we need to remember that lesson. And sadly, we live in a world of selfishness. We live in a world where you see all over social media what you deserve. You deserve that vacation. You deserve that really expensive car. You deserve this. All I ever hear about is what everybody deserves. And I wonder how often we actually hear the message, you deserve to sacrifice greatly for the good of others. We don't hear that very often. And I will tell you what, marriage and family is an amazing way to move outside oneself. Before I was married, it was all about Stephen Valgos. And then when you get married, it's about us. And there's no longer me or her, it's us. And you lay down your life for the other. See, we're moving away from selfishness towards selflessness. And then you have children. And now it's not about you two at all. Now it's about these children who you are called to support, to raise, to teach by example and lessons. And then we send them to catechism. And we want others to affirm in our children what we ourselves have been teaching all along. Sadly, I live in a world of education where I see so many children who come to our school who have been neglected, whose parents aren't stepping up, whose parents are still wrapped up in themselves at the expense of this child. And I want to thank you. Thank God for grandparents. Thank God for grandparents who continue to step up and support families and support their children and support their grandchildren. It's no wonder that Jesus points towards children as the example of the Christian life. And we must recognize that there is so much more about our culture's attitude and values that are inconsistent with Christian living. It is really important to ask the question, how can I serve others? We get wrapped up in what I want, but I wonder if we could see the world through God's eyes and ask the question, how can I serve? And as many of you know, today marks the 1-year anniversary of my diaconate. So I was ordained a year ago today, and that is also a commitment to service. And that's only one small way. And so I have been called to serve in this way as a deacon in this community, Father Manuel in his way, altar servers in their way, cantors, but also every single person here is asked the question, how will you serve? And I'm sad to say that even still, with catechism getting ready to start, we still need catechism teachers. You don't have to know anything, but if you know how to read, you're good, right? We need catechists to step up and say, yes, I'll do it. We still have no second grade catechists, and we could use a few more assistants, a few more helpers. But listen, that requires selflessness. Because it's not about you at all. Trust me, I've got better things to do on Wednesday evenings, right? I had a long day at work. I want to go home and relax. but there are kids that need catechism. Our church needs your help for our confirmation program and our catechism program. And not just our church, but other various communities that serve others who are in need. James gives us the antidote for all of this. James says there is a sickness and a selfishness and a greed that is causing division, but here is the answer. He says, wisdom from above. So not our worldly life, but if you want to know how we ought to live, if you want to know how we ought to pray, then we need to be tapping into this wisdom from above. And I'm going to tell you that the wisdom from above is the Spirit that dwells in your heart. And you can hear and listen to that as well. Wisdom from above is pure, peaceable, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruit. He says we should be without inconstancy or insincerity, which is to say that we should be stable and strong, not flippity-floppity, not a flip-flopper, but knowing what we're about and choosing on solid ground to act in a stable and consistent and expectant way. To be sincere in our actions and our attitude. This is the Christian life, and this is the Christian attitude. We're not social climbers, we are givers. We're not polluted and angry, we are pure and peaceable. We are not harsh and obstinate, we are gentle, compliant, and merciful. Not selfish, we are selfless.